I woke up to a sound I shouldn't have heard. My wrench, still clutched loosely in my hand, hit the metal floor with a dull clang, rolling away under my bunk. The overhead lights flickered in low-power mode, casting long, eerie shadows against the steel walls of my quarters. My mind was still foggy, still caught between deep space exhaustion and the gnawing paranoia that came with it. But something had triggered my instincts. The door had slid open. That was what jolted me awake. I was supposed to be alone. The ship was in sleep cycle, all non-essential systems shut down, and yet someone was here. I turned my head, slow and deliberate, the way you do when you're hoping you're wrong about what you think you just saw. She stood in the doorway, backlit by the dim hallway lights, her silhouette alien but unmistakably humanoid. Kalia, my assigned maid. A Zenthari, her species' skin shimmered faintly under the artificial glow, as if it absorbed and refracted light in ways my human brain couldn't quite grasp. Her 4 fingers twitched slightly, betraying a moment of hesitation. Kalia. My voice came out rough, half a whisper, half a growl. She took a step forward, the automatic door shutting behind her. The room plunged back into near darkness, only the blinking console lights keeping it from being pitch black. She hesitated, her voice carrying that soft, almost melodic hum that came naturally to her species. I was not supposed to wake you. A cold knot formed in my gut. My mind raced through the possibilities. The ship's AI would have stopped her from entering my quarters unannounced unless. The AI wasn't in control anymore. I pushed up on my elbows, reaching instinctively for the sidearm under my pillow. It wasn't there. My stomach dropped. Kalia's gaze flickered to my movement, and something in her expression hardened. "You're not safe," she said, barely above a whisper. My pulse kicked up. "What?" She took another step closer, her large violet eyes scanning my face, gauging my reaction. "The ship is compromised. We have to go." I sat up fully now, every muscle in my body tensed. "What the hell are you talking about?" Kalia's hands clenched and unclenched at her sides. "There is no time to explain. I bypassed the security systems to get here before she cut herself off, shaking her head. Before they could stop me. Every hair on my body stood on end. There was something in her voice, something raw and desperate, that sent ice through my veins. "What did you do, Kalia?" She didn't answer. Instead, she reached for me, her fingers brushing against my arm. "Please," she murmured. "You have to trust me." The ship's emergency lights flickered. A warning klaxon rumbled through the walls, muffled, almost hesitant, like the system itself wasn't sure if it should be sounding an alarm or if it was already too late. I had a choice to make. Sit here, demand more answers, risk whatever was coming, or trust the alien maid who had just broken into my room in the dead of the artificial night. Somewhere in the distance, something groaned, a deep, metallic sound, like the ship itself was waking up, stretching in ways it wasn't supposed to. I swung my legs over the edge of the bed. "All right," I muttered. "I hope you know what the hell you're doing." She exhaled, relief flashing across her face before she turned sharply towards the door. "We have less than 5 minutes." I followed her, every step feeling like I was walking straight into a nightmare I hadn't seen coming. But something told me this was only the beginning. The corridor outside my quarters was eerily silent, save for the occasional distant creak of the ship's framework adjusting to deep space pressure. Kalia moved quickly, her gait unnervingly fluid, like she had already mapped the entire ship in her head. I followed, my bare feet cold against the metal flooring, my mind racing to catch up with what was happening. "What exactly are we running from?" I asked, keeping my voice low. She glanced back at me, her violet eyes dark with worry. "Not running. Escaping." A chill ran through me. That's not an answer. Before she could respond, the ship lurched. Not the controlled thrust of an engine maneuver, but a sickening, unnatural shudder that sent me stumbling against the wall. Kalia steadied herself instantly, her species' natural agility putting me to shame. The emergency lights flickered, bathing everything in a deep crimson glow. "We're out of time," she said. A low, distorted hum resonated through the walls, deep, mechanical, yet strangely organic. It was a sound I had never heard before, and something deep in my instincts screamed at me that I didn't want to know its source. Kalia reached for a panel on the wall, her fingers moving in a blur as she bypassed the security locks. The door hissed open, revealing a narrow maintenance passage. She motioned for me to go first. I hesitated. Where does this lead? To the docking bay, she said, voice tight. There's an escape pod. My gut twisted. You knew this was going to happen. She didn't answer, just gestured impatiently. Another lurch sent a deep groan through the ship's structure, metal shrieking in protest. Whatever was happening, it was getting worse. I stepped inside. The passage was barely wide enough to fit my shoulders, filled with the scent of overheated wiring and stale air. Kalia squeezed in behind me, sealing the door. Her breath was steady, but her fingers twitched, betraying her nerves. What the hell is going on? I demanded. If you don't tell me now, I swear I'm not moving another step. She sighed, pressing her forehead against the cool metal wall for a brief moment before answering. Something is inside the ship. I swallowed. Something. Her eyes met mine, solemn and sharp. Not crew. Not human. And not friendly. I opened my mouth to press her further, but a sound froze the words in my throat. A scraping, like claws against steel, echoed through the ventilation shafts above us. Slow, deliberate. As if whatever was up there knew exactly where we were. Kalia's hand shot out, gripping my wrist. Her skin was warmer than I expected, firm but trembling slightly. Move, she whispered. Now. I didn't argue. We navigated the passage as quickly as possible without making noise, the distant scraping keeping pace above us. The air was thick, charged with something unseen but oppressive. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. A sharp hiss from ahead made Kalia freeze. She pressed me back against the wall, her body tensed. Just ahead, where the passage split, a shadow loomed against the flickering red light. I barely had time to register the shape before the thing turned its head. Eyes, not human, not sensory, gleamed in the dim glow. And then it moved. Kalia reacted first. In a single fluid motion, she shoved me back and pressed herself against the narrow wall, her entire body tensed like a coiled spring. My breath caught in my throat as the creature ahead shifted, its glowing eyes narrowing. The dim emergency lights barely illuminated its form, but I saw enough elongated limbs, ridged skin that pulsed faintly, like it was alive in a way that metal and flesh shouldn't be. A slow, deliberate sound rumbled from its throat, something between a growl and a mechanical whir. Kalia, I whispered, barely moving my lips. She held up a hand, silencing me. Her other hand moved toward her belt, fingers closing around a small cylindrical device. A weapon? A tool? I didn't know, but she wasn't hesitating. The creature tilted its head, studying us with an eerie patience. It didn't attack. Not yet. It was toying with us, like a predator gauging the strength of its prey. My pulse pounded in my ears. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but Kalia's stillness told me that would be a mistake. Then, without warning, she moved. A blur of motion. The device in her hand crackled to life, emitting a pulse of blue light that surged through the passage. The creature recoiled, screeching as it slammed itself against the walls. The entire ship shuddered in response, the sound of metal straining under some unseen pressure. Go! Kalia shouted, grabbing my wrist and yanking me forward. We bolted down the passage, the echoes of the creature's shrieks following us. I could hear it regaining its footing, the rapid click-click-click of its limbs scrambling against the metal. It was coming. The passage ended abruptly at a sealed hatch. Kalia cursed under her breath, fingers flying over the console to override the lock. I turned, heart pounding. The passage behind us was empty, but I knew better than to think we had lost it. Hurry, I urged. The ship groaned again, louder this time, like something vast and unseen was pressing against its hull. Lights flickered. The air felt heavier, charged with a strange static that made the hair on my arms rise. Something wasn't just hunting us. Something was invading. Kalia let out a relieved breath as the hatch hissed open. Without hesitation, we scrambled through, sealing it shut behind us. We were in a larger maintenance bay, filled with stacked crates and exposed wiring. It looked abandoned, untouched for weeks, maybe longer. My eyes darted around, searching for something, anything that could help. Kalia was already moving. This way. She led me to a grated floor panel and yanked it open, revealing a crawl space barely big enough for a person. Get in. I hesitated. You first. She gave me a hard look but didn't argue. Slipping inside, she motioned for me to follow. I climbed in after her, pulling the grate back into place just as the hatch behind us exploded inward. The creature had found us. Through the gaps in the grate, I saw it step into the bay, moving with an unnatural grace. It scanned the room, slow and methodical. My lungs burned as I forced myself to stay silent. Kalia's hand closed over my arm, her grip firm. I barely turned my head to look at her, and when I did, she mouthed one word. Wait. The creature moved deeper into the room, its gaze sweeping over the crates. Every second felt stretched to eternity. Then, a distant sound. A sharp, metallic clang from somewhere else in the ship. The creature snapped its head toward the noise. A beat of silence. Then, without a sound, it turned and darted out of the room, vanishing into the dark corridors beyond. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. My body ached from the tension. Kalia moved first, lifting the grate carefully. It won't be gone for long, she whispered. We need to reach the escape pod before it realizes we tricked it. I nodded, swallowing hard. Whatever was happening on this ship, it was getting worse. And we were running out of time. We ran, breathless and desperate, through the dimly lit corridors, the ship groaning like a dying beast around us. The escape pod bay was just ahead, the reinforced doors standing between us and the cold embrace of space. Kalia punched in the override codes at the terminal, her fingers a blur. I turned back, half expecting to see the creature lunging at us, but the hallway was empty. The silence was worse than its screeches. It was thinking. Hunting. Waiting. Hurry up, I whispered. I'm trying, she shot back, frustration tightening her features. The system was sluggish, glitching. The ship's AI was barely holding together, its compromised core groaning under the weight of whatever had invaded it. Then, the ship shuddered. A deep, warping sound vibrated through the walls, an unnatural pulse that made the air itself feel wrong. The lights flickered wildly. The creature was near. With a final beep, the doors hissed open. Without hesitation, we lunged inside, sealing them shut behind us. The escape pod's interior was small, just enough room for two. I strapped in as Kalia activated the launch sequence. Outside, through the small viewport, I saw the corridor tremble as the thing approached. A shifting darkness, its form distorting as if it wasn't fully part of our reality. Its glowing eyes locked onto us, filled with something ancient and insatiable. Kalia slammed her fist against the controls. Come on. The engines roared to life. The docking clamps released. The pod jolted, the G-forces pressing us into our seats as we were flung from the ship. The last thing I saw was the creature lunging at the viewport, its gaping maw stretching impossibly wide. And then we were free. The ship shrank in the distance, drifting in the void like a ghostly husk. Moments later, a silent explosion rippled through its hull, a pulse of blue energy consuming it from within. Whatever had invaded it, it was gone. Or at least, it was trapped in the wreckage, floating in the void forever. I exhaled, every muscle in my body going slack. Kalia turned to me, her violet eyes heavy with exhaustion. We made it. I nodded, swallowing hard. Yeah. For a long time, we sat there, just breathing, staring out into the endless expanse. The stars stretched before us, distant and indifferent. Finally, I found my voice. You knew this was going to happen, didn't you? Kalia hesitated, then nodded. I suspected. The ship wasn't just failing. It was being taken. I didn't know how or why, but I couldn't let you die. A lump formed in my throat. Why me? Her gaze softened. Because humans don't give up. And I needed someone who wouldn't let fear control them. I let that sink in, the weight of everything we'd survived pressing down on me. She was right. Humanity had faced the unknown before. We didn't always win, but we never stopped fighting. The pod's navigation system beeped, locking onto a nearby station. We had a chance. A future. I turned back to Kalia, managing a small, tired smile. Next time, let's take a safer job. She smirked. Agreed. And as the stars stretched ahead, I realized something. The universe was terrifying. Vast. Unknowable. But we were still here. Still standing. And that meant we had already won.